Welcome to UpDown Politics. Donald Trump just made a new post on Truth Social where he seemingly is flip-flopping on Ukraine once again. So throughout this year and even going back to 2024 when he was still campaigning to become the president, back then he basically wanted USA to get out of Ukraine. When he got into presidency, he started to talk about peace. And then he was peace, supplying weapons to Ukraine. Then he talked about peace again, then supplied more weapons to Ukraine, talked peace again, supplied more weapons to Ukraine. And then he met with Putin, and then he said Ukraine basically has no chance of winning this war, and they should settle for peace. And now he's basically flip-flopping again and saying that Ukraine can win, and we will continue to supply weapons to Ukraine, and Russia is basically losing this war. There's a couple of points here that I can make from this, which I didn't see elsewhere. That's why I'm making this video. There's a hidden message in this flip-flop that I want to expose in this video. So I will do that. But first, let me read this post here so you will get an understanding, at least the surface level understanding of this post. Then I will give you the hidden meaning behind it as well. So, after getting to know and fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, and after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form, with time, patience, and the financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO. The original borders from where this war started is very much an option. Why not? Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is very much making them look like a paper tiger. When the people living in Moscow and all of the great cities, towns, and districts all throughout Russia find out what is really going on with this war, the fact that it's almost impossible for them to get gasoline through the long lines that are being formed and all of the other things that are taking place in their war economy, where most of their money is spent on fighting Ukraine, which has great spirit and only getting better. Ukraine would be able to take back their country in its original form, and who knows, maybe even go further than that. Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do what they want with them. Good luck to all, Donald J. Trump. So at surface level, this is clearly pledging support for Ukraine. This is allocating military spending that the United States is currently using about $1 trillion per year. They are using that capital to supply weapons to NATO, and then NATO basically sends it to Ukraine and does whatever NATO wants to do. But in reality, NATO is basically a subject to the USA hegemony. So NATO does what the United States wants. But Donald Trump is trying to distance itself from NATO, and NATO is just doing whatever they want, which is not reality. NATO does what United States wants it to do. So United States wants this war with Ukraine, and they want to support Russia. Well, that has been clear from basically day one, shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but this is a little bit of a distraction. But then he basically wants more financial support coming from Europe, and he says that Ukraine can win. But the hidden meaning here is that at the same time that they want Ukraine to act, to take back the borders of 1991 and to go even further than that. This is a agitation towards Russia. He says a real military power would take less than a week to win Ukraine. That Russia is a paper tiger, and that Ukraine is now threatening to go beyond the 1991 borders into the territory of Russia itself. So this is an agitation toward Putin and Russia. So from my understanding, the hidden meaning behind this post is that both sides can now go into full-on war mode. It's not just Ukraine, but Russia basically now has a blank slate as well. They can now do whatever they want against Ukraine. And here he even continues to say, I wish both countries well. and good luck to all. So uh, at the same time, he's distancing himself from this whole war situation, but at the same time, he is he is supporting NATO as much as Biden did support. So no change there. But all in all, it's basically a call to end this war by military means. That's the hidden meaning in this post. Now, there's a lot of mistruths in this post as well, and I will clear up those as well, because it says that Ukraine can win this war and that it would take real military power less than a week to win Ukraine. But this is silly. Ukraine is 3 times the size of Iraq. And how many years was United States in Iraq as well? It took a long while to beat Iraqis, and you have to understand that Ukraine is fully supported by NATO, the biggest, mightiest military alliance on the planet. So and Russia is basically fighting alone. Sure, they get some help from China and they get help from North Korea, but it's not a military alliance same as NATO, and it's basically Russia versus the whole NATO. So that a real military power would take less than a week to defeat all of NATO. That's not realistic in my opinion. So this is just an agitation in that front. And then when it says almost impossible for them to get gasoline through the long lines, this is basically just misinformation. So there was this post here on Reuters on September 23rd, 2025, that the Russian fuel crisis widens after Ukrainian attacks, sources say. So when you try to find out what are these sources, it doesn't say, it just says the sources, the sources, the sources. So basically there's no source for this information. And if you just look at it logically, Russia is the biggest exporter of commodities and energy on the planet. Now, when they lost the customers from Europe, they suddenly have all of this excess oil, excess commodities that they still want to sell all across the planet. Now they are starting to sell it more and more into Asian countries, but they don't have a problem with energy. It is Europe who now has an energy problem because they are now fully dependent on energy coming from USA and their own networks, because they are no longer getting the cheap Russian energy. So Russia has no problems with energy, and these reports that are in this post, they're basically talking about individual gas stations. So the manager of a gas station decided to temporarily close the gasoline station because there was no gasoline. So sure, in any country, all the time, there are individual gas stations that run out of oil. It's normal, especially if you're a country at war, that logistics get interrupted. So there might be temporary closures or situations where the gasoline has run out. And when the Western news stations decide to take these individual cases and post it as if this is a major problem affecting all of Russia all the time throughout this war. So it's not at all what is being tried to say in this post. In reality, Russia is now increasing exports outside of Russia, and they are building a new pipeline with China that goes through Mongolia, and it is called Siberia 2 gas pipeline. This is going to replace the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that was destroyed probably by USA at the start of the war. And what will happen with the pipeline is, as it goes through Mongolia, Mongolia obviously benefits from it, but from China, the pipeline can be extended to other Asian countries as well, meaning that many countries in Asia will want to partner up with China and Russia to get cheaper energy in their own countries. So this is making Russia have more influence in that area, and clearly they don't have an issue with energy. So this is again just it's a misdirection. It's not reality. Sure, there are always problems, but it's not as widespread as Donald Trump makes it look like it is. So anyway, Trump is now saying that Ukraine can win, but in reality, he doesn't really care who wins. USA is making money from selling weapons, and the military-industrial complex in USA is making money from the US taxpayers and from the money printing that the United States is now committed to by selling weapons and creating weapons and using it all across the planet. And Ukraine is this one target for these weapons shipments, and that grift basically continues. But in my opinion, this is not a full commitment for Ukraine's victory. This is just basically continuing the status quo, which is basically to support a forever war that the military-industrial complex can continue making money from. And they are just using the European Union to basically try to chip in more capital into that machine. But all in all, I don't think this will change the outcome of this war. Eventually, as we have seen over the last year and a half, Russia is taking land week by week, and Russia's capabilities continue to increase while Ukraine's capabilities continue to diminish. And for a year now, Ukraine has been conscripting people to fight on the front lines, and they have had more and more problems with personnel, with defects. The morale is actually not that high as it is said in this post, that they have great spirit, because when you conscript people, they are not volunteers, they are forcefully conscripted. And if you do it for more than a year already, people get tired of it. There's protests going on in Ukraine about this issue all the time. People don't want to fight this. They want a settled end to this conflict. But because the leadership of Ukraine, they want to continue fighting, and NATO wants to continue to fighting, European Union wants to continue the fight, then Trump is basically having to continue the status quo here. But basically, it's a call to action for both Ukraine to escalate and for both Russia to escalate as well. That's my take on this post here, and I don't think we will see an end to this war this year. Next year, we could see it, or 2027, we could see some kind of a situation on this front, because eventually, one side or the other, it's a war of attrition, will basically get taken out. That's the likely outcome as of now. Anyway, that's it for the video. Hope you liked it. Consider subscribing. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.